far, I have been accepted into Binghamton University, the University of Florida, and Stony Brook, in which I was admitted into the Women in Science and Engineering Honors Program. However, I am waiting to hear back from 10 schools in the next few weeks that I applied regular decision to. By the end of March, I will have all of my results back. As far as the application process, Ms. Gilroy was incredibly helpful in editing my essays. I spent time with her in extra help, and she was also willing to put time in on her own with new suggestions when she knew that deadlines were soon approaching. Additionally, I had interviews with both Tufts University and the College of Holy Cross. In regards to the high school report, students in the AP US Government and Politics class, including myself, attended 2 field trips this past week. At Long Island University, we visited a life-size replica of the White House where we played the roles of the president and his cabinet to learn more about the responsibilities of the government. The next day, we went to the state capitol in Albany to learn more about governmental action. We were given a tour of the legislative building, watched the state legislature and assembly in session, and witnessed a press conference sponsored by MAD urging lawmakers to make changes regarding blood alcohol levels to honor our friend Andrew McMorris. Furthermore, the second semester of the Y semester has begun at Stony Brook University. We are working in the biology labs where we are studying microbiology. Additionally, we are working on creating a poster and presentation for the symposium in the coming weeks where we will present our findings. At 7 p.m. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Emily Sherrill. As for updates at the high school, spring sports started on Monday of this week. At the elementary school, Wading River students are preparing for their upcoming SRO performance, and we wish them lots of luck in their show. Additionally, at the high school, Isabel Sherrill, as well as myself, participated in Poetry Out Loud, which is a national poetry recitation contest that works to encourage high school students to memorize and recite and perform real poems while learning about their history and contemporary life. The students worked from a pre-selected catalog. My sister placed first in the regional competition and was top 5 at states, and I was in the top 5 at the regional competition. The Basket Bonanza. Finally, the Basket Bonanza this Saturday was a wonderful success. This event is very important to the junior and senior class fundraising, so thank you to all who participated. Thank you.
Great update. Yeah,
thank you. Great job. So I'm going to move on through to the middle school. Wow, over 40 middle school students, 40, participated in the Escamilla Festival this weekend. From outstanding performances to collaborative spirit, they did a great job representing our district and our musical accomplishments and their hard work. So congratulations to our 40 middle school students. More than 185 6th and 7th graders collaborated on a project with art teacher Claire Finnegan that is on view at the annual Parish Art Museum student exhibition. Each student captured a unique view of the middle school building on cards that were put together to form a mixed media work on recycled cardboard. I had the pleasure of visiting that last weekend with Mr. Pugliese, and we had a number of high school students that were at the Parish Art Museum as well with their work on the wall. You wouldn't know that it wasn't an established artist, but for that it said high school display. So great work by our students there. The middle school as well held their annual mid-year code of conduct assemblies with all of the 3 grade levels as a reminder for that. And the middle school PTO will be hosting a St. Patrick's Day dance this Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. Thank you to the PTO for their continued providing of great opportunities for our students. Over at Wading River students had their annual science fair last week. I had a chance to walk through that as well. Almost half the students had participated. It's an optional project, a lot of work, a lot of thinking, writing, math, graphing, so really a great turnout. Some of the project topics were what helps slow erosion, growth hormones and living things, and reusable bags. Over at Wading River as well, wildlife biologist Ranger Eric Powers from the Center for Environmental Education is going to be joining our 5th graders this Thursday to help prepare them for their special quail embryology unit, since the eggs will be arriving soon. So looking forward to the annual quail eggs and quail egg project there. And as our ex officio students mentioned, the SRO, bring your scuba gear. Mr. Paranello wrote this, by the way, so if it sounds like Mr. Paranello, bring your scuba gear, since 5th graders are in their final week of rehearsals before their SRO play, The Little Mermaid, which will take place next Thursday and Friday, March 21st and 22nd. There'll be a special dress rehearsal performance for the entire school and second graders on March 21st. Over at Miller Avenue was crowned the Cat Cup champions at the recent Battle of the Buildings on February 29th in support of the fundraiser for Lax Out Cancer. Miller Avenue students were treated to a great science assembly when Bubble Mania came to visit this week. And second grade students will be visiting the Long Island Museum and Schoolhouse in the upcoming week. This evening we have some student recognitions, includes our Poetry Out Loud semifinalist and winner, our Quill Award recipients, and our winter athletic recognitions, and there will be a budget presentation this evening as well. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Tremendous amount of activities always going on, so great to hear. Next up, any opportunity for board members? Anyone want to add anything?
And just to add to what Jerry said, last 2 weeks has been some fundraising activities. Casino night, which was held from the Wildcat Athletic Club, was very successful. A lot of administrators attended, which is great. And then last weekend, there was a lacrosse fundraiser, Wildcat Lacrosse Club. It was last Friday. I think this Thursday is girls lacrosse. I think baseball's in a week or so. So just a lot of busy fundraising, a lot of fun times. So everyone should encourage everyone to attend if they can.
Thanks, Mr. Lewis. Yes, it's great that we have such great community support for our booster clubs and all our athletics. It's tremendous to see. Thank you all for supporting those efforts.
I just wanted to give an update on the legislative committee. We met this past week with Anthony Palumbo's office, a representative from his office, and both community members and committee members and Mr. Poole spoke passionately about all of the wonderful points of pride in our district, and then the legislative priorities that our district committee has painstakingly put together, including flexibility within our funding to advocate for the state, to allow for districts to be more strategic in the use of funds and have more control over those funds for budget planning in the future.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, agreed. And thanks, Katie, for stepping up on that call to point out some of the highlights that we arrived at as a committee. So it's a great committee. Thanks again for the community support, the committee members, and obviously the students who are partaking in that this year. Great learning experience as well. Anyone else have anything they want to add tonight? No? Okay. Continuing forward, do I have any statements from residents on the agenda items only? Go ahead. You can proceed up to the podium. Please state your name and your address, please. My address? Yes, yeah, or at least the town you live in. I shouldn't say your address.
Michael Yanucci, Town of Brookhaven, Shoreham. Thank you to the Board of Education for the opportunity to speak this evening. Last summer, the Board of Ed took the brave and courageous step to utilize federal funding to close the small funding gap to save pre-K. This is related to the budget presentation. In a review of the district value statements, the one for responsibility stands out the most. We, as a Shoreham-Wading River Central School District community members, value taking responsibility for our actions and pursue success through exercising the individual control we have in creating our own futures. I think the future of SWR looks stronger and brighter with UPK. You have an awesome responsibility and can exercise your prerogative as a Board of Ed to keep this worthy program. A budget should reflect our values and hopes. It included a lot, but not pre-K. The Board of Ed has an opportunity to correct this wrong, and I have faith that this administration and board will come around and realize this issue is important, and not just for our youngest learners, but for our families too. With a small investment of time and energy, the Board of Ed and district administration can easily put their heads together to close the gap in pre-K funding. While I'm disappointed that our elected board won't respond to the questions I shared, I do appreciate the opportunity to meet with Mr. Poole to review the questions I shared. I think we as residents have a right to know and get answers from our Board of Education on these important policy decisions. To shirk that responsibility off to an administrator is not right to anyone in this community. And I'm sorry I'm being so firm on that, but I do believe we have a right to know where everyone on this board stands. I'm writing, some of what I'm going to share is from an email I wrote. I'm writing with frustration over the news that the district has opted to not continue with UPK. I know you're frustrated by the state as well. I'm frustrated. However, it's clear to me and so many of my neighbors and friends that UPK is a worthy investment in Shoreham-Wading River, and it is a rather small cost compared to the overall budget. In fact, as I mentioned a few moments ago, UPK is, I don't know if I mentioned this, it's only $80,000 to close the gap from the current year up to $200,000 if we take the full funding that the state is offering. One option to close the gap would be to use the debt service fund. This year, we are using the debt service fund for the first time. That could offset expenses that are borne by the local revenue In the budget, that's a very easy solution. I support our schools and our budget, and I hope the budget finally adopted by the board reflects UPK as a priority. As a voter, this issue is important to me and many others. I just don't see how in these tough economic times we would pull a very well-received program from the community, especially when the difference in cost is only estimated to be $80,000 for current seating. I would advocate to expand the program for the full state grant, close the gap, use in-house funding sources, and if time permits, I'd be happy to share those funding sources with you. From the district presentation, I learned that despite a proposed 4% spending increase and a proposed 2.5% tax increase, this board in education and administration is proposing to cut pre-K from our students and their families. I'm aware that budgets are a challenge. Mr. Curie projected confidence at the last presentation with his introduction of the debt service fund into the revenue source of the budget. I also learned that this only represents 1/8 of the overall funds, meaning we have $600,000 plus sitting in this fund that could be used to save pre-K and offset local dollars in the budget. I have a bunch of questions for the board, and I hope you could consider answering them. Could additional funds from the debt service fund be applied to cover the gap in grant funding? Has this been presented to the board? The fund balance is projected to be over $4.5 million. For those of you out here that don't know, the fund balance is leftover money in the budget from this year that was taxed to the residents and then not spent. We could use that money to save pre-K. It's up to the board to do that, though. What is the actual grant dollar shortfall for UK? What would the shortfall represent as a percentage of the proposed budget? Have any options been considered in terms of reprioritizing budget initiatives to raise the priority of UPK? If so, what were they specifically? I see just short of $20,000 in new dollars for clubs at Miller Ave and Wading River. I think that's great. Over 50 new smartboards, and while my kids have 2 in their classrooms right now, 2 smartboards in their classrooms, I'm happy to see new smartboards coming in, but how are we using the current technology that we have sitting in my kid's classroom right now? Has the Board of Ed been provided any financial analyses in their weekly Board of Ed packets? If so, can those be shared with the public so we can better understand why you would consider cutting pre-K and adding considerable costs to the many families in our neighborhood that use pre-K? Could you please share a list of all new items and initiatives spending in the current proposal for the spending? I could go on with these questions, but I do want to ask about the space at Wading River. You tell I'm passionate about this issue. I heard that Wading River is lacking in space, and that's something I just heard for the first time. But although when I look on the district website, I look at the enrollment numbers, and it looks like the district enrollment is flat since September. And I don't want to be misleading to the public because that could variate, the variance could be by building, but overall enrollment is flat based on the numbers available on the district website. So I think it's unfair to suggest to the community and members in the public that spacing is an issue. There might be spacing, but when there's a will, there's a way. Is building space short for our K-5 enrollment? If so, to what extent? What enrollment projection formula are you using? What enrollment numbers are you basing your decisions on? How many sections are there for K-5 this year and proposed for next? Is that available by grade to the public? I don't see that on the website. What was the enrollment at the start of the 2018-19 school year? Student enrollment. Can I get copies of the enrollment documents for the last 5 years? I have faith that this administration and Board of Ed will come around on this issue and realize it's important not just for our youngest learners, but for our families. Being in your position is not easy. However, this seems like the easiest decision you can make. It's also tax neutral. Our youngest learners deserve to have UPK. They've had it for the last 3 years, and I really implore you to reconsider this decision. Our youngest learners deserve UPK. One of our most vulnerable populations are children, and they deserve your leadership as they fight the headwinds of those against pre-K, making the same arguments that those made against kindergarten 30 plus years ago, that it's babysitting. That's what people made as the argument against kindergarten many, many years ago, and it's not babysitting. I ask that you and the Board of Ed reconsider this budget. Despite the many highlights in the budget, this small change is calamitous. Many neighbors are upset. Please reconsider. Please save pre-K. I have a lot of information. I'm going to stop here because I probably exceeded my 3 minutes, Mr. Sheridan.
And I haven't spoken.
And I do appreciate, I know, and I so gratefully respect you for that, and thank you, because I am coming here with open heart and hoping that you truly will consider this, because many people do believe that this is important and not worth being cut. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Unici. So a few comments on what you spoke to. First, thanks for your passion and advocacy. I've seen some of the posts that you've made. I think it's important to note that we as a board don't take any program lightly. We look into everything and decide what's best for the district. A few things that I wanted to share around that was, as we go back in time, the UPK program was always a year-by-year initiative. It was initially funded through grant funds as well as through the state. The state gave us a portion. However, the state formula didn't allow for flexibility in how you use it. Mr. Poole, feel free to jump in if you wish. Our program was lottery-based and vendor-based, so not every student could participate in the program. So potentially not every student can participate. And recognizing, I guess, as a group, really, the executive budget had begun offering the UPK program. We believed that we should do it as a result of the pandemic. There was, the district, we thought it was the best interest to help our kids catch up, both socially and emotionally, as well as because daycare facilities were closed. So it was a one-time use. It was never intended, and it's never been a line item in our budget prior to the pandemic. So based on those reasons and looking at where we were for the year, this would be a whole new expenditure that we would take on. So I appreciate your feedback. We know that Mr. Poole has agreed to meet with you and discuss this further. The questions that you've raised, I know you also have some other requests in of the district. Those will be furnished to you. I don't know if anyone else have any comments, or Mr. Poole, you want to add anything to that?
No, just looking forward to meeting with you. I believe it's Thursday, so.
Yep. And I think at the end of the day, the advocacy that you've spoken to and that we've suggested from a legislative standpoint, I'd encourage residents to let your legislators know that we would appreciate changes in the way that the funds are allocated to school districts.
I'll jump in there.
Yeah,
The simple answer is for New York State to lift the per pupil allocation of $5,400 per student that Shoreham-Wading has allocated. If they lift that cap, then the full cost of UPK can be burdened by the UPK grant from New York State.
One question in terms of funding with the state. Is there anything that the state fully funds from schools? Anything from K through 12?
I'm not going to answer that at this point. We're going to continue with our agenda, but thank you for that. Thank you.
I think it's important for everyone to know up there,
Yep.
they fund nothing from schools.
Okay.
So now we're using an excuse to not fund UPK. I think it's important for the residents to be understanding that. I think we should be transparent. That funding there is available as an incentive to offer pre-K. It's not intended to be a fully funded grant, and lifting the cap would actually incentivize schools from offering less seats because you would spend more money per pupil, and the intention is to keep pre-K at an affordable rate so residents can have it, not so we can send kids to a $15,000 per year program and only offer it for 30. So we need to keep in mind that times are really tough right now for people, and to pull this away when it's only
So,
$8,000.
Mr. Yannucci, I'm going to respectfully ask, your assertion that it's been pulled away is not the right assertion either. So I'm trying to, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to ask you to please refrain at this point. I've given you your time. We'll answer your questions. You have an appointment with the administrators. Thank you. Next up on the agenda, I want to continue to move forward. The exciting part of our night is our student and staff recognition. First up will be our Poetry Out Loud semifinalist and winner, Ms. Nicole Wellbar, if you would like to please introduce our students. Thank you.
Good evening to the Board of Education, Administration, and Community. I am very pleased to be here tonight to honor some of our talented writers and performance poets. I also want to thank their teachers and advisors, Mr. Ball, Ms. Nazer, and Ms. Tren, for continuously encouraging the students and guiding their success. I know that the teachers are very proud of the students' accomplishments. So I'd like to start actually with the journalists, if that's okay. Callie Krause and Alyssa Corso are two passionate journalism students with an insatiable appetite for pop culture and the arts. They crafted a wonderful piece that won the Quill Award for Best Arts Review with their behind-the-scenes look at this year's Coffee House. Their winning piece not only showcased their impeccable writing skills, but also highlighted their profound understanding of arts and entertainment at the high school level. Callie and Alyssa's ability to seamlessly intertwine their expertise in both realms undoubtedly set their review apart, solidifying their well-deserved victory. Katie Spencer, an enthusiastic student journalist, masterfully reported on the updates to Shoreham-Wading River's high school grounds, going out of her comfort zone to speak to administrators and to gather information. Her dedication and exceptional interviewing skills resulted in a thoroughly researched news story that earned her a second-place finish at the Quill Awards for Best News Story. Katie's ability to captivate her audience with a compelling narrative, balanced reporting, and attention to detail showcased her commitment to delivering impactful journalism and serves as an inspiration to her peers. And now for our amazing performance poets. Emily and Isabel Sherrill are integral stitches in the fabric that make up our symbols and creative writing community here at Shoreham-Wading River High School. Emily has been a steadfast member of the symbols community since she was an underclassman. Now that she is close to graduating, it's incredible to look through previous issues of symbols to note her growth as a writer and as a person. Competing in Poetry Out Loud since its inception, Emily has always been a top contender, participating in the regional competition all 3 years on behalf of our district. Her poetry is powerful, and her recitations have been known to evoke emotional responses from the audience. Isabel, an accomplished writer in her own right, has been a member of Symbols since her freshman year. She was a participant in Poetry Out Loud this year as well as last year. This year, she was able to join her sister at Stony Brook University for the regional competition. Both students placed in the top 5, with Isabel taking first place. Isabel went on to compete in the state competition this past Saturday at FIT, where she made it to the top 5 once again, top 5 in the state. Before awarding and taking a picture of our talented writers and poets, I'd like to encourage everyone here, when you get the chance, to check out Callie, Katie, and Alyssa's full articles in the Wildcat Paws Online, the online paper found on the high school website. And I would also like to call up Emily and then Isabel to perform their poems for you tonight. Please give them a warm welcome and the traditional finger snaps that show appreciation for our poets. Everyone know how to do that? All right. Thank you.
I'm Isabel Sherrill, not Emily. I'm a sophomore here, and I'll just be handing off the mic after, I guess. My poem that I'll be reciting is What Lips My Lips Have Kissed and Where and Why by Edna St. Vincent Millay. What lips my lips have kissed and where and why I have forgotten. And what arms have lain under my head till morning. But the rain is full of ghosts tonight that tap and sigh upon the glass and listen for reply. In my heart there stirs a quiet pain for unremembered lads that not again will turn to me at midnight with a cry. Thus, in the winter stands the lonely tree, nor knows what birds have vanished one by one, yet knows its boughs more silent than before. I cannot say what loves have come and gone. I only know that summers hang in me a little while, that in me sings no more.
Hello. I will be performing The Tables Turned by William Wordsworth. Up, up, my friend, and quit your books, or surely you'll grow double. Up, my friend, and clear your looks. Why all this toil and trouble? The sun above the mountain's head, a freshening luster mellow, through all the long green fields has spread his first sweet evening yellow. Books, 'tis a dull and endless strife. Come, hear the woodland linnet. How sweet his music. On my life there's more of wisdom in it. And hark, how blithe the throstle sings. He too is no mean preacher. Come forth into the light of things. Let nature be your teacher. She has a world of ready wealth, our minds and hearts to bless. Spontaneous wisdom breathed by health. Truth breathed by cheerfulness. One impulse from a vernal wood may teach you more of man, of moral evil and of good than all the sages can. Sweet is the lore which nature brings. Our meddling intellect misshapes the beauteous forms of things. We murder to dissect. Enough of science and of art. Close up those barren leaves. Come forth and bring with you a heart that watches and receives.
Great job, thank you. Mr. Poole, did you want to?
Could we have the 5 students up for
Yes,
for a
yes.
photo? That would be great.
So Alyssa and Emily, Katie, Alyssa, Callie, Emily, and Isabel. Could you all come up to the stage? Mr. Poole, we have some pins for you, and we'll be taking a photo. Congratulations to all of you. Amazing talent. Thank you.
Next up, we have our winter athletics recognitions. Mr. Mark Passamonte, please.
Thank you, Mr. Sheridan. This is always a great time at the end of each season to recognize the student athletes for what they accomplished. Student athletes, if you are here tonight, when I do call your name, if you could just please stand. And then for those that are here, we'll get a photo up here on the stage at the end. I would also ask everyone at the end, I'll go team by team and we'll applaud each team at the end. Again, this year, we all our winter athletes as our teams, we're scholar athlete teams. So we're 2 for 2 here. If we get that number 3, we'll be a school distinction again, which we have for the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm confident that the spring will bring that as well. Starting with girls track, coached by Paul Koretsky and Bob Szymanski. All league was Giovanna Olivo. The Shoreham-Wading River MVP was Giovanna Olivo and Morgan Lesowitz. And the scholar athletes were Karen McGuire, Jocelyn Nastasi, Olivia Pesso, Anna Minetti, Morgan Lesowitz, Emma Granshaw, Alyssa Corso, Lisa Masawa, Grace Minerick, Lauren Pollock, Abigail Cook, Isabella Arena, Rebecca Zorsk, Madison Perez, Emma Riley, Sydney Albert, Julia Corso, Kayla Corso, Sophia Stadler, Gianna Olivo, Grace Barra, and Isabella McManus. With the, congratulations to girls track. Moving on to the boys winter track team, coached by Joe Mordarski, assisted by Paul Anderson and Brendan Gilly. The all-league selections were Noah Weisemersky, Patrick Shea, Mike Hubner, Jake Smith, Jarrell Winston, Logan Young, Nick Friedlander, Kyle Schiff, Jaden Montez, and Kyle Cavalier. All-county was Jarrell Winston, Mike Hubner, Noah Weisemersky, Patrick Shea. All-state was Michael Hubner in the 600. All-academic was Noah Weisemersky. The most improved was Kyle Cavalier. The MVP was Michael Hubner. And the 4x8 relay team, consisting of Patrick Shea, Noah Weisemersky, Mike Hubner, and Jarrell Winston, came in second in the state qualifier. Michael Hubner was the small school Section 11 champion in the 600 meter, and he placed 5th in New York State in the same event, and he's nationally ranked as well. The scholar athletes for boys winter track, James Minetti, Nick Freelander, James Maxwell, Jake Smith, Ethan Rayfuse, Noah Weisemirski, Kyler Kuck, John Calvert, Patrick Shea, Spencer Lee, Aiden Schmidt, Alexander Gallo, Tim Worthington, Leighton Mangiamelli, Charles Licata, Cameron Sheedy, Andrew Licata, Mateo Cortina, Jake Fabian, Nick Worthington, Zach Johnson, Jarrell Winston, Henry Weisemirski, Jacob Carberry, Cole Fernandez, Kyle Schiff, and Lucas Maxwell. Great job, boys. Winter track. The boys basketball team, coached by Kevin Culhane and assisted by Tim Gilmore. Max Julian was all-league. League 6 Rookie of the Year was Tyler Lee Avery. All-academic was Liam McGuire. The Spirit Award for Shoreham-Wading River was Ezra Johnson. Most Improved went to Jack Faulkner. And the Scholar Athletes for boys basketball, Liam McGuire, Tom Daggett, Mike Biondi, Jack McGinnis, Alex McCarowitz, Aiden Riley, Max Borum, Ryan Seville, Jack Faulkner, Matt Arabio, Dylan McClellan, Kieran Clifford, and Kyle Stella. Great job, boys basketball. Moving on to girls basketball, coached by Adam Lee Avery and assisted by Kate O'Driscoll. All league, Grace Kitchen, Alyssa Bell, and Juliana Mahan. SWR MVP was Juliana Mahan. And the Scholar Athletes, Juliana Mahan, Tiana Barone, Haley Abrams, Jocelyn Kavanaugh, Ava Weingartner, Stamatia Almarudis, Shaylin Varbero, Alyssa Bell, Annabelle Keegan, Leslie Jablonski, Catherine Keegan, Brooke Anderson, and Charlotte Erb. And also, I know there are other awards that I didn't mention that are not going to be announced till the all-county dinner in April, so we'll make sure we get those posted as well. But great job for girls basketball. Wrestling, all-county wrestlers, Chris Colon, Gavin Mangano, Nate Spuler, Zach Wilson, Thomas Mateus, Shane Hall, Jacob Conti, and Wes Hoden. All-state were Chris Colon and Gavin Mangano. And the MVP was Zach Wilson, for the SWR MVP, excuse me. SWR Most Improved was Nate Spuler. The team was League 7 champions and also won the Newburgh Duels, Jansen, and Scarsdale tournaments. As we recognized a couple weeks ago, we had our state champion in Gavin Mangano at 131 pounds. And the Scholar Athletes were Chris Colon, Shane Cowan, Wes Hoden, Shane Hall, Thomas Mateus, Leo Marcario, Zach Wilson, and Frank Pizzi. Great job wrestling. For moving on to competitive cheer, coached by Bree Carlin and also assisted by Lisa Carlin. All league was Caitlin Morello. All county, Alexa Langenhan, Katie Leahy, and Naomi Madrid. Scholar athletes were Nora White, Isabella Roth, Lila Catallo, Caitlin Fioretti, Kaylee Hansen, Juliana Sefton, Mary Macias Espinosa, and Grace Stefano. Awesome job cheerleading. Boys independent swimming. The MVP was Hayden Shea. The most improved was Hayden Shea, and the scholar athlete was Hayden Shea. So good job, Hayden. And lastly, as you know, we combined with Center Reach for fencing, and we had a really successful fencing there with Charles Peterson and a couple other students that do that. All-county second team was Charles Peterson. All-county first team was Charles Peterson. All-county second team was Casey Hernandez. Honorable mention all-league was Casey Hernandez. And scholar athletes were Casey Hernandez and Charles Peterson. So good job for the fencers. And also, I forgot to mention, we had 141 varsity athletes, winter athletes. 92 of those achieved 90 or higher were scholar athletes, and that was 65% of our winter athletes were scholar athletes. So great job. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Passamonte. Thank you very much. Okay, next up will be our reports and reviews. Mr. Passamonte, if you want to invite the athletes up to take a photo. Yes. Yeah, I knew we forgot something. Thank you. I totally forgot, yeah. Thanks again.
includes funding to replace 50 to 60 interactive smart boards, reflects reductions of contingent funds, and does not include funding to cover the shortfall in UPK funding that has been covered by grants in past years. Very, very happy to show that picture there. That is this year's first grade chorus play. It was a great event to see the amazing talent that the instructional leaders inside of that building were able to get such young kids to perform.
Mr. Arcure, if I just interrupt, if anybody's interested in understanding the need for interactive smart boards, Mr. Esposito did a full public presentation. It's on the website about the 5-year instructional technology plan that includes costs in the future, some of which include a replacement of the 10 to 12-year-old interactive smart boards in a school district. That's available on the website for anybody who'd like to view it. Thank you.
Good point, Mr. Poole. Thank you for that. I will add that as a footnote to this presentation going forward. A couple of the budget highlights. Listed are the new clubs that are outlined for both the Miller Avenue School, the Wading River School, and the middle school. It comes to a total cost of a little under $20,000. Interactive smart boards. There are approximately 120 smart boards across all 4 buildings. Most, if not all, are either past their useful life and/or are experiencing technical difficulties. The plan is to replace between 50 and 60, depending upon the cost that we're able to obtain them for. So there's funding inside of the budget, or inside the proposed 24-25 budget, that if the price comes in lower, we will be able to purchase more. If it comes in a little bit higher, then we anticipate purchasing only approximately 50. We also plan on holding this value to the 25-26 budget, so that by the end of the 2025-26 budget year, all of the interactive smart boards would be replaced district-wide. Any remaining smart boards that will needing replacement, sorry, if they're due to the increase in cost, we would purchase any remaining smart boards with funds in the 26-27 budget. Transfer to capital fund line. There is funding provided from the tax reduction reserve, included as a revenue source in 24-25's revenue budget, and offsetting expenditure related to that is a transfer to capital fund. It is to make repairs related to the electrical infrastructure, replace circuit breaker panels, switch gear, install hardwired carbon monoxide detection systems, and also the construction of 2 additional faculty restrooms at the Miller Avenue School. There are a few new high school courses that are being offered: digital literacy, pre-advanced placement, world history and geography, writing lab and writing center, and a new elective related to cyber security. As for maintenance projects, additional cameras district-wide. This is both a replace existing cameras that are past their useful life, and also install cameras in new locations. And install a concrete walkway along the middle school track. And there's funding to purchase new equipment, kindergarten playset at Miller Avenue, library furniture at Wading River, innovative classroom furniture at the middle school, robotics equipment at the high school, and an upright Yamaha piano for the high school. 2024-25 proposed budget reflects a dollar increase of $3,389,104, or 4%. It is important to note here, if the district did not include a transfer to capital fund expenditure line that has an offsetting revenue to it, we would only be seeing about a 2% increase from 23 to 24. It is important to not confuse the community to show 2 different percentages. That's why we only show year-to-year budget change. However, as a note, without a transfer to capital fund that is 100% being paid for out of a tax reduction reserve, the district would only be seeing a 2% increase when the current CPI by the State Comptroller's Office is a 4% increase. In order to accomplish that, there were a lot of reductions related to economies and efficiencies throughout the entire budget. So I just want to point that out as we continue to develop the 24-25 budget. Summary of expenditures. At the previous meeting, we covered employee salaries, which were up to 71.3%. We covered the salary section as well as the benefits, which was 71.30%. And for this evening, we are going to cover transportation, debt and transfers, district-wide expenses, and special education. After tonight's budget presentation, we would have covered a little more than 93% of the total expenditure budget. Transportation, the budget provides funding for the current in-district and out-of-district transportation configuration. We provide busing for all students. In 2009, there was a traffic safety study conducted due to the lack of sidewalks, the lack of street lighting, and as well as William Floyd Parkway and 25A intersection. It was determined that establishing a walker zone, would be unsafe for the district. So inside of our community here, we are busing for all students. It includes funding for busing related to field trips, busing related to the special education program, busing for the career technical education program, the athletic program, as well as bus matrons. The budget reflects a 2.5% cost increase as outlined in the 5th year of our 5-year transportation contract with our transportation provider. There is nothing in the budget related to the electric bus mandate that is set to start in 2027. There is ongoing discussions about the potential impact, but for the 24-25 budget, the budget only contains the increase related to the 5th year of the current contract. All known private and parochial transportation needs have been accounted for. April 1st is the deadline for any parent to notify the district that if they're sending their student to a private or a parochial school that is within our mileage limit, that we are required to provide transportation for. We currently have 6 mini buses budgeted, and all 6 are currently being used for schools within the area. We have factored in shared route savings inside of our budget development, and the total number of contingent buses and matrons have been reduced. And as I mentioned earlier, we tried to sharpen the pencil, align our budget to what our actual expenditures are. We continue to get closer and closer in order to balance the budget. So in this particular category, we are showing a year-to-year decrease of $134,996, or a 2.33% decrease. Transportation budget makes up 6.42% of the total budget. Any questions on transportation?
Mr. Curie, what do you account for some of the, it's actually a reduction, is it gas prices, is it, what's kind of caused the
Reduction here is we have reduced the number of contingent matrons as well as the number of contingent buses related to private and parochial transportation. When it came to the fuel, we actually kept the fuel value flat. We don't anticipate diesel cost increasing for the upcoming school year.
Thank you.
Debt and transfers, as I mentioned earlier, transfer to capital fund budget line was added to the 24-25 budget. So a transfer to capital fund budget line is an expenditure line that once the voters support the budget and the budget passes, we actually transfer from the general fund that the voters vote on the budget $1,676,921 out of the general fund, which is what the voters vote on, into what's called the capital fund. The capital fund allows us to do capital construction work. So it's two different checkbooks, to say. So as opposed to putting up a separate proposition, asking the voters, put the money right into the capital fund, it is more concise to add it to the general fund in this manner. This expenditure allows the district to transfer the funds from the general fund to the capital fund only after the budget has been approved by the community. To support this expenditure, the projects that will be completed with these funds must be shared with the community. To cover the cost of this expenditure, the remaining prior year state aid funds that must be used by August 2024 will be included in the revenue budget. The capital projects on the list are priority projects that were included inside the district's 5-year capital plan. So the electrical infrastructure replacement and upgrades at the high school add no more than 5 electrical panels, add hardwired carbon monoxide detection at the middle school, add sub-panels throughout the building, replace original electrical switchgear and electrical panels, add hardwired carbon monoxide detection. Wading River School, add no more than 6 original electrical panels, so the replacement of 6 original electric panels, and at Miller Avenue, replace no more than 5 original electric panels. As for the adult faculty room restrooms at the Miller Avenue building, for those of you that are familiar with the building, right in front of the gymnasium entrance, there was a small wedge-sized shaped instructional area. It's been used as an office. It's currently being used as a sensory room right now. We were able to relocate the sensory room and construct in this area by taking out the wedge-shaped room and adding a more traditional rectangle-shaped room to add 2 desperately needed faculty restrooms there. Behind the wall, there is all of the necessary utilities to make these connections. And the fully loaded cost estimate for this is approximately $395,000. Any questions on the transfer to capital fund projects?
I'd just like to point out again that earlier in the year, Mr. Rossini, after a careful review of the building condition survey we presented last May publicly, the committee spent time prioritizing building condition survey items, and these items directly come out of the building condition survey as identified priority needs for the school district, which were presented as part of the 5-year capital plan, perhaps maybe a month or 2 ago. And
Thank
that
you.
can be found on the webpage.
Correct.
Yes.
And it is important to point out that I should have listed on this particular page here, backwards. On this particular page here, the transfer to capital fund budget line was reviewed with the members of the Space and Facilities Committee, and there was unanimous consensus to bring this project forward to the Board of Education. The debt and transfer section continued. Interest on tax anticipatory notes. This is for if the district needs to borrow funds until we start to receive our tax levy payments that do not start coming in until late December and early January. The district has to borrow money and pay interest. So any interest, it would be paid for within the budget funds in the interest section of this area. The annual bond referendum payment, principal and interest, final payment is for June 15th, 2032. As the overall principal balance is reduced, the related budget interest amount will also be reduced. Interest and principal for the 2016 energy performance contract, the last payment on this debt is June 15th, 2031. As I just mentioned, transfer to capital fund budget line for electrical infrastructure replacements and upgrades, and construct 2 faculty ADA compliant restrooms. This section is also a transfer to cafeteria fund budget line, which supports the district-wide food service program. Due to rising food and operating costs, this budget line has been increased to a little under $21,000 $1,000. Our food service program is a self-operated program. We aren't subsidized by the National School Lunch Program, and there's a cost. We subsidize the free and reduced meal values and the overall support of the entire program. Transfer to special aid fund, used for summer school services for students with disabilities. So in this particular section here, as I mentioned earlier, $1,676,000 is the value of the transfer to capital. However, the dollar change year to year is about $106,000 less. So similar to the transportation section, we did make reductions in this area, one of them pertaining to the interest value related to the bond payment, and also reducing the amount that is getting transferred to the special aid fund. So yes, this particular section shows a 39.64% increase. It is related directly to the transfer to capital fund budget line, which is being fully funded by the remaining funds related to the prior year state aid claim. Any questions on the debt and transfer section? This particular,
Just
Sure.
note, the prior year state aid reserve needs to be expensed. This is the final year.
August
So-
2024. District-wide expenses. Funding district-wide budget codes provides the means towards delivering world-class opportunities. So access to extensive BOCES career technical education programming, instructional technology programs, extensive field trips and cultural arts programs, ongoing renewal of text collections, diverse college and career readiness activities and events, extensive co-curricular activities, instrumental program beginning in grade 3, robotics program, elementary and secondary library makerspaces, theatrical performances, instructional equipment, student access to wide-ranging databases and online resources. So this is a very broad category. Everything I just mentioned there was directly related to the buildings. Services that are not building specific relate to categories for Board of Education, auditing services, legal and fiscal agent services, liability insurance, cyber insurance, central printing, public information, treasurer, purchasing agent, district clerk and district meetings, judgments and claims, and the instructional equipment, textbooks, supplies and materials, musical instrument repairs, field trips, arts and education programs, English language learner programs, co-curricular activities, library books and periodicals, occupational education, BOCES instructional services, guidance services, psychological services, and charter school tuition. In this particular category, there were reductions in the following areas: one-time equipment purchases, travel and conference budgets, memberships, and central postage. Funding has been increased to support liability and cyber insurance coverage, BOCES administrative costs, fiction and nonfiction textbooks, legal advertising, instructional supplies and materials, including paper. Budgeting for field trips this year has changed to comply with the Office of the State Comptroller's guidance. So in past years, whenever a parent or guardian chaperone would go on a field trip, such as the Washington, D.C. trip or the Philadelphia trip, the parent or guardian has to make their payment to cover their cost. However, their total cost for parents and guardians to attend these trips as chaperones are part of the initial purchase order the district makes with the actual field trip provider. So if I'm sending 100 students and 20 chaperones at a cost of $1 each, the purchase order would be entered for $120. However, in the past, districts only budgeted for $100. When the chaperone money came in, the $20 that was being received would actually increase the budget. We would take the $20, increase the budget. We're not allowed to increase the voter-approved budget. We don't have that authority. So the comptroller says, okay, in your budgeting process, plan for those 20 chaperones by increasing your expenditure by 20 chaperones. So in that example, $20. However, on the revenue section, add a new revenue called student fee income for $20. So the overall effect to the taxpayer is zero. There is no additional burden to the taxpayer. However, there is an increase in expenditure year to year between the two budget values when it comes to field trips. In this case, our year-to-year increase is $158,000 specifically related to field trips, specifically related to parent and chaperone costs. These costs have been paid by the parents and guardians to chaperone these trips since these trips were established. So that isn't the concern or question. It's just the process in which we have to now account for it makes the year-to-year expenditure reflect an increase. If we were to take this out, this category would see a $22,000 year-to-year decrease. Any questions on district-wide expenses, field trips?
Just a quick question. So I noticed textbooks are included in this section. This is traditional textbooks that we would use in classrooms? Or is
Yes.
it? Okay. And I believe there's a resolution on Chromebooks. Licenses in educational material associated with Chromebooks, is that in a different section?
That's
Is that
going to
under
be coming
curriculum?
up on March 26th inside of the technology section.
Oh, technology. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Just to answer that a little bit further, where in which budgets are funded clearly are dictated by the governmental chart of accounts. So if they, for state aid purposes, we have to follow their chart of accounts. And when it comes to digital text, when it comes to technology, there are specific budget codes that actually align with the district's version of our tax return, known as our ST3 filing. Our ST3 filing drives our state aid, which is critical for us to align our expenditures with that. I would love to put all student-related textbook material, whether it's digital or in print, inside of a single category, but then we would not be able to receive the proper aid. So that's where we're actually breaking it down the way that we are in order to comply with generally accepted governmental standards.
I was just going to say, I would interpret that as accounting requirements.
Jargon,
Yeah.
correct. But as I thought about it further to say, it would definitely make it easier for us if we could lump it all together so everyone could see it, but.
I wasn't going there, but okay, thank you.
Special education section, funding special education budget code allows for the following: student placements to meet individual student needs, out-of-district placements including BOCES, residential placements, related services and support for teaching staff, school-based counseling, speech and language services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, behavior consultation, educational consultation and coaching days, itinerant services, hearing and vision, equipment purchases to support the following programs: Learning Center, RISE program, integrated co-teaching, resource room, specialized reading, program supports, secondary integrated co-teaching, academic support period, humanity labs for students in the Learning Center program at the high school, job coaching opportunities for students in the high school RISE program, tutoring services and home instruction. These services are afforded to students who are unable to attend school due to physical, mental, or emotional illness. Services from 2023-24 remain the same: out-of-district placements, residential, private, and BOCES, psychiatric evaluations and contracted services through BOCES, occupational therapy and physical therapy services, nursing services, funding to address unanticipated student needs and enrollment. It's important to note a portion of the contingent funding has been reallocated to cover one-time equipment costs inside the special education budget. And in preparation for the 23-24 budget, the district issued RFPs for all the professional services related to the special education department. With a lot of work from Ms. Von Eschen's staff, they were able to roll over a lot of the RFPs with minimal increases. So we were able to renew them at very, very low percentage increases, which is both beneficial to the district as well as the students. This particular budget is being decreased by $60,508. There is no impact to students with this particular decrease. It is primarily related to aligning actual costs with what we're actually spending. Inside the 23-24 budget, we had anticipated higher rates of increases related to the professional services contracts. Since we were able to come in lower, we were able to, again, take some funding out. So it's reflective of a 1.60% decrease, and this category is 4.21% of the total budget. At this point, between the two meetings, we've covered 93% of the expenditure budget. Any questions on the special education section?
I know sometimes there's a big swing in out-of-district placements. That's not the case this year?
No. Miss Von Eschen has gone above and beyond in order to bring as many students back, create the best setting here for them. And I think her staff, the team, everyone involved inside the process has done a great job to keep our out-of-district placements only when necessary.
Okay, thank you for that.
Looking at the budget overall, expenditure budget reflects a 4% increase, or $3,389,104. The revenues to cover that expenditure budget, the tax levy, as I mentioned earlier, $1,449,826 increase year to year, or 2.5224%. State aid, based on the executive run, provided to us in mid-January, is reflective of a $45,000 increase. Other local revenue, again, this is pilot payments, this is student fee revenue, this is tuition revenue. You will see this in much greater detail at the April 6th meeting, but it's currently projected at $228,076 increase. Applying current year surplus funds to the following year's budget, that is known as appropriated fund balance, we are showing a decrease of $85,054. Utilization of the tax reduction reserve, funds that must be spent by August of 2024. This is the funding I was mentioning that is directly related dollar for dollar to the addition of the transfer to capital fund expenditure line inside of the budget. So it's was not applied in 23-24's budget, so it's showing an increase of $1,676,921. Use of the Employee Retirement System Reserve remains at $1 million. There's no funds being used from the Teacher Retirement System Reserve. The Unemployment Reserve, same amount of funding as the previous year, $104,000. Workers' Compensation Reserve, $550,000. And the Debt Service Fund is being used for the first time, 24-25 budget, and the revenue value is $74,266. So this particular slide shows you the expenditure budget and how it's being paid for. Any questions at all? Other than that, March 26th, we're going to cover the remaining 6.96% of the budget. And on April 2nd, hopefully the state adopts their budget by their due date of April 1st. We will cover the revenue budget. And April 16th, the budget adoption. Any information of previous presentations can be found on the district's website. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Curie, sorry, is there any public outreach? I know sometimes you go out on the road and do presentations this year.
Yes, I am awaiting to hear back from Shoreham Civic Association on a date. I have the Wading River Civic date, but I'll be sure to add it to the March 26th meeting. We will definitely be
Just those two?
We're going to be at Shoreham Civic. We have made ourselves available to present there. They haven't accepted our invitation yet. We continue to, I'm certain that they will eventually allow us in. Mr. Sid has given me 5 minutes at the Wading River Civic, as he traditionally does. So I'm happy to have my 5 minutes there. It's a very packed agenda.
Do you want me to ask them if you need an extra 5 minutes?
No, but they always
Sit
give
and
me,
listen?
but they always give me a couple extra ones by just asking questions. So eventually I just take my 5 minutes and eventually it's fine. Leisure, Glen and Leisure Village says thanks, but no thanks. I'm gonna have a date with the PTO council. I have a date. And we have 3 other Board of Education meetings after April 16th where the budget would be presented.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If I could just, and Mr. Arcuri ended on the slide here, but if residents do click on departments and programs and go to business, not only is there budget information, but there is a whole host of other detailed information. So I'll just read a few of those that are on there. District reserve balances, 2023-24, internal audit risk assessment update, management response to risk assessment update, internal audit, transportation operations, internal and external audit, extra classroom activities, the New York State School Funding Transparency Form, a narrative, district reserve balances. So there's a host of other detailed, transparent budget documents that are available on the webpage, and that's maintained and updated regularly as these reports become available through district administration or the audit committee, which is generally where these forms are reviewed by the district committee on audit. Thank you.
So if we have questions about the budget, we go to the district website instead of Facebook, right? Is that what I'm getting from that?
Correct.
It's all right there. It's all right there.
Again, if anyone ever has a question regarding the district's finances, I'm always available, have always been available the past 14 years. And no, I'm not on social media. I don't have access to what questions are out there, but I'm always available to answer anyone's questions.
You're very generous with your time with that.
Thank you, Mr. Arcuri. That was a good overview. Appreciate that, Mr. Poole. I think those resources, I encourage residents, if they have the time to take, the published materials are terrific and they're easy to read and go right through. So I'd encourage you to take a look. Thank you for that. Next up are our votes and resolutions. The approval of the February 27th, 2024 regular public meeting minutes. May I get a motion? Henry, second Katie. Any discussion or questions? I think Mr. Rose, on this one, I think you were absent, right? So you'll abstain, okay. No discussion, questions, okay to vote? All in favor? So it'll be 5, and then abstain, 1. Thank you. Next up are our Board of Education resolutions. There are 2 of them. May I take them as a block? Okay. They're 2324-144 and 2324-145. May I get a motion? Mike, second. Jim, any discussion or questions? All in favor? 6-0. Those 2 resolutions, just for the residents, are the approval of our legal notices and the date and time of our budget vote, which will be Tuesday, May 21st, 2024, during the day. Anything else to add on that? Just wanted to make sure residents knew that. That's what we just approved. Okay. Moving forward. Let's see. There we go. I just did that. Would be the curriculum and instruction resolutions. There's 1 of them, 2324-146. May I get a motion? Katie, second. Mike, any discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor? 6-0. And on that, we just approved the Chromebook lease agreement. Next up is business and operation resolutions, 2324-147. May I get a motion, please? Henry, second. Mike, any discussion or questions? All in favor? 6-0. And next up, on the personnel agenda for tonight, I'd like to go ahead and separate letter I. Any problems with that? Any discussion on that? Okay. May I get a motion to accept letter I on personnel, please? Katie, second. Mike, any discussion or questions? All in favor? 6-0. Mr. Poole?
I'd like to welcome Mr. Eric Braumoff, our new Assistant Director, our new Director of Athletics, Health, Physical Education, Community Programs. Mr. Braumoff, you are most welcome. He will take the place of Mr. Passamonte, who will be retiring at the end of the school year. I do look forward to celebrating all of Mr. Passamonte's successes in in June when we celebrate our retirees, but it's with great pleasure that we welcome Mr. Eric Bramoff as our new athletic director. He brings with him a wealth of experience and an impressive track record that will undoubtedly continue our work in elevating our athletic programs to new heights. With over 20 years in education, including 10 years as a physical education teacher and more than a decade serving as an athletic director in Sag Harbor and Oyster Bay, Mr. Bramoff's passion for sports, health and wellness, and commitment to students is exemplary. He is dedicated to fostering an environment of excellence, both on and off the field, and celebrating the successes of our students. I'm really confident that Mr. Bramoff's innovative ideas, proven strategies is going to inspire our coaches, student athletes, physical education and health staff, along with all of our students to reach their full potential. Please join us in extending a warm welcome to Mr. Bramoff. Mr. Bramoff, I do have an athletic cap to welcome you to the school district.
Thank you to the Board of Education. Welcome. Looks good. Looks good. All right, continuing with the personnel appointments for tonight, I'd like to offer a motion, please, for the remainder of the personnel agenda. Katie, second. Mike, any discussion or questions? All in favor? 6-0. Thank you. I don't think we have any communications, Mr. Hayward.
Yeah, we
right?
do.
Oh, we do? Okay, go for it.
Yeah, there are 2 Board of Education trustee seats are open for the term July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027. Board election candidate packets are available for pickup in the district clerk's office starting March 12th, and the last day to submit a candidate packet is Monday, April 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. Hayward. Any other discussion from the board? Okay. Any additional comments from residents? Please state your name and your residence.
Hello. I am Colette Grasso. I am a resident of Shoreham. It's nice to see everybody. I know that it's been a while. First, I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Arcuri. You always do such an amazing job with the budget, not only with the presentation, but with all the preparation that you do for it. And I just want to tell you, as both a resident and a previous employee of the district, I've always appreciated how much work you put into it. I wish for everybody's sake that more people would come out to become more informed about it, but you always do such a wonderful job, and I really, really appreciate it. With regards to Facebook, because as you all know, I'm a very guilty candidate of this, social media does have its merits when factual information is passed around. I enjoy it, and I think it's useful in the sense of it does spark much needed discussion. There's a time and a place for it. There's a correct way to do it. There's an incorrect way to do it. Mr. Yanucci was trying to engage me in a lot of discussion regarding pre-K with it. There was some factual information, some questionable information, but the important part of it was it sparked a very valuable community discussion with regards to pre-K, which is what I want to make a comment about. Conceptually, pre-K is a wonderful idea, right? Let's help to educate, get our kids better prepared to come into kindergarten. However, at the end of the day, the district's responsibility is to educate our students who are in grades K to 12. That is the priority. Not to say that pre-K, again, would not be a good idea, but there's a lot of moving factors and parts here that can't be predicted. Enrollment is one of them. I remember being here for several years before where we were talking about declining enrollment. That was the trend. That is where we were going. In came COVID and a whole bunch of other factors, and myself and Mr. Hayward and some other people were creating a brand new kindergarten classroom on Labor Day because we had a ton of people come out of the woodwork in late August and register for kindergarten, something that was not anticipated. That is something that 100% can and will occur again. and there's no way to predict it. You don't know how many kids are moving into the district. You don't know how many special ed children are going to come. It was a few years ago where we had a number of out-of-district children that were in our special education programs. The incoming kindergarten class were all Shoreham-Wading River residences, and we could no longer accommodate the out-of-district kids. These are the kinds of things that happen from year to year that you can't predict, and sometimes not until the very last second, right before school is going to occur. It also represents a very small percentage of the taxpayer base of Shoreham-Wading River. I don't know what the numbers are of potential pre-K candidates for this September. I do know that it's a much smaller number than the children going from K to 12, and I know that number is even smaller when you take into consideration the entire taxpayer base in Shoreham-Wading River, a lot of which are our seniors in the leisure communities, which I can't believe they wouldn't take advantage of seeing that presentation, being that the majority of them are on a fixed income. That's preposterous to me. And I have parents and in-laws that live in the Glen, so I'm going to take that up with them, Glen, that they should have you.
You don't have to, but you don't have to, but it's okay.
But again, like I said, at the end of the day, your responsibility is to the kids K to 12 and to the majority of the taxpayers of Shoreham-Wading River. And with all due respect to the people who have kids in pre-K that benefited from this over the past 3 years, the rest of us that have been around for a really long time, when we wanted to send our kids to pre-K, that was our responsibility, and that was our financial burden. And it's not something that's mandatory. It's nice, it's very helpful, but at the end of the day, it's a luxury. It's not a necessity. And if New York State isn't mandating it, like I believe kindergarten isn't even mandated in New York State, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so pre-K isn't mandated either. It's not our responsibility to have to pick up this burden. If there was a way where it was taxpayer neutral, that's one. Number two, we had the room, which there's no way to predict that, because if you're talking you only have 1 or 2 classrooms, you may not be able to do it. If you have to outsource it to a local preschool and they don't have the room, then you can't accommodate it. I just don't think it's something that we need to make a priority. Would it be nice? Yes, 100% agree. But for the majority of the taxpayers and our responsibility to kids in kindergarten through 12th grade, it's not something that we should be looking at this year. That said, there's something, I don't know if this is even possible, but if the state is giving you a certain amount of money and that doesn't cover the amount of pre-K, is there a way that you could pass that on as a subsidy by lottery that people that do go to local pre-Ks would be able to use that? I have no idea. I'm literally spitballing here. I don't know anything about how the money from the state works. But if that's money that we get to use for pre-K, but we can't accommodate ourselves, could you use that in a lottery where it's tax neutral, it's not going to cost the taxpayers anything, but we still take advantage of the money that's being handed to us for it?
So that
Just
was
an idea that might be a good compromise.
great suggestion. It was a question that we all brought up to Mr. Poole and administration, and Mr. Poole, do you want to take a stab at that?
Unfortunately, if you have a UPK program through the state funding, parents cannot be charged any amount. So there is no value that a parent could pick up to have a benefit of the $5,400 to offset their cost. That's not a possibility the way the law is written right now. So we've been asking for flexibility in how we spend those money. Let us maximize it. Let us provide as much as we can with the $500,000 so that we can access those funds at no additional burden.
Okay, that's good to know. One other thing that we were talking about in the back, and I had even forgotten about this, was pre-K had come up a number of years ago. I believe it was part of the Briarcliff discussion when the building was going to be shut down, and people were saying, well, can't we turn that into a pre-K kindergarten building, blah, blah, blah. And the expenses, it just wasn't going to work out. And when it was being discussed, the community had come together and said, if you try to put this into the budget is going to get shut down. And the community spoke pretty loudly about that, but I believe it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. What I would suggest is if you are going to entertain this idea of pre-K, perhaps put out a survey about it. We get surveyed all the time about other things that are much less significant. I mean, this is a way that you could get valuable information on what the climate is of the entire community, not just the handful of, 80, 90 families that would be affected by the pre-K, because if it's going to affect everybody in the budget, then maybe we want the feedback from everybody. And I thank you for your time, and it's nice to see everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Grasso. Okay. Any additional comments from residents? Okay. All right, may I get a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? First Henry, second Jim. All in favor? 6-0. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.